Thank you so much for joining us on the Dwelling Show. I'm your host, Ola Dantes. I've got Anne Amongrad with us today. Hey, Anne, how you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you doing this morning?
Doing fantastic, doing fantastic. I'm really glad you could join us today. I can't wait to get into this and just dig in. So, but real quickly, just kind of tell our Dwell listeners a little bit more about, who you are, what you've been doing, and kind of what you've been up to lately.
Yeah, absolutely. So I own a private equity investment firm out of Phoenix. We've been in operation for a little over 5 years now. I actually started flipping homes originally, and we realized that number one, there had to be a better way. There had to be a way that we could benefit all parties involved. And we sought out a way. So after we flipped a couple of properties, we realized we wanted to go in a different direction. And it's not so much about how many properties you can flip in your lifetime, it's how many properties you can buy and hold, and how you can create more cash flow for yourself and have a lot more of that financial freedom aspect versus having to continue to flip. So it's fantastic getting that capital when you actually flip the property, but what you do with it is more important than actually getting it itself. And so we started going down this path and this vision process within our company to what is it we're actually trying to accomplish for ourselves and for our investors. And so we transitioned into a private equity model where we help individuals and we help others to find and acquire these properties, and we do all of the management ourselves. So we're a D4U, a DFY, if you will, on acquiring properties, doing all of the renovation, finding the residents, and managing them for long term. And so we actually want to work with individuals that want a long-term relationship.
Wow, fascinating. I mean, I was
Yeah.
just writing a bunch down when you were talking. There's a lot in there I want to touch on. There's a lot in there that, you and I kind of can relate to, right? Especially starting with the flipping and now kind of into kind of buying old. So
Yep.
first and foremost, if there's somebody listening on the show thinking, wait, how did you even get started in flipping? Like, I just want, like, how did you even start flipping homes? So, maybe there might be in a part of their life thinking, I'm thinking of real estate, but I don't even know how to get started. Do I need to wholesale? Do I need to flip? Do I need to invest passively with a syndicator like myself? Like, maybe they're just not even sure. So how did you guys even, start your journey in real estate?
So my journey actually started with my first partner. So I was still in my corporate job. I was working for a large retail company. I did a lot of operations and logistics. And I have a friend of mine that approached me and he said, hey, you're working 95 hours a week. I mean, it was bad because you're a salary. So you have to work. And if you know anything about retail, when you get into fourth quarter, right before, about September or so, you have to start planning for Black Friday, which is at the end of November. So, I mean, there's a lot of planning, a lot of process that goes into that. And I was just, busting my rear, just getting all of this stuff done. And I just didn't feel like it was really serving me. And I wanted to do more. And so he said, I just feel as though you're looking to do something else, and you want to do something additional. So we actually, after fourth quarter that particular year, he said, why don't we go up and flip a house? He had already done multiple properties. And I said, yeah, that sounds fantastic. So I went out and he actually helped me to flip my first home. So he already had the connections. So it's always important to work with somebody that has done this before. And that's the biggest thing. And this is why we always say that education is so important, because you want to learn from somebody else's mistakes. You want to avoid those pitfalls. And that's exactly why I do podcasting. This is why, my partner, not my current partner, this is why we are so forward about giving as much information to our clients as possible and to other investors, because we know the struggle. We remember what it was like buying your first house and signing your name to that first deed. And you're like, oh my gosh, what happens if this isn't successful? What happens if we lose money? You go through all of the what if scenarios, but you just need to get your first one done. Once you get your feet wet, it doesn't matter if you win or if you lose. It's a learning lesson. And the next one is going to be easier. And the one after that is going to be easier. And then eventually you're just popping along. And you're like, oh my gosh, do you remember 5 years ago when I bought my first house and I was sweating? And now I'm like, man, my hand hurts because we just bought 3 properties this week. So it's completely different. It's essentially training your mindset that this is okay. So success is on the other side of fear.
Yeah, I love
So
that.
that's what we really believe. And so therefore you just need to get through your first one. whatever your
Yeah.
first one is, whether it's a wholesale deal, whether it's a flip, whether it's a rental, whatever the case may be, you just need to get your first one done. And you need to find individuals that will support you and give you the encouragement, because there's a lot of naysayers out there. So you need to find like-minded individuals, whether it be in a group, finding real estate education, whatever the case may be. I think that was the most important part for me, because there were a lot of naysayers in my world when I first got started. There still are. So it's just about finding those like-minded individuals.
All right. So, fascinating story. So you had this partner, he's been doing a few flips, so he kind of helped you a little bit. So you did
Yeah.
this first deal. And then you kind of, for whatever reason, you did a few deals. You're like, I'm not sure about flipping. But before we actually go into that,
Yep.
how was your first deal, right? So come at it from a temperament perspective, from a mindset perspective, and also
Yeah.
get into the technical details of the challenges you faced. How did you find the deal? How did you fund the deal? What were the numbers? Kind of go into the full spiel.
Oh my gosh, this was my first deal. So that would have been quite a few properties ago. So I don't remember the numbers exactly. I think we bought it for, this was in Phoenix. We bought this one for about 176. We ended up selling it for like I want to say around 240, 250, maybe 260. We ended up making about $10,000 on the deal. So we had planned on making about 30. But as we all know, something always comes up. And so, I was on this very first one, I was very diligent, and I said, we're going to get an inspection. We're going to go through all of these things. I'm a super planner. So I had everything in spreadsheets, and I'm, calculating, I'm, doing cost comparison between different vendors for windows and, flooring, all of these different things, going to an array of different places to look for flooring. So I was over diligent, and that was part of the mistake that I had, which is I wanted to find the best price on our flooring, and rather than considering the time cost. So that flip almost took us, we bought that one at the end of July, and we sold it in October. So it should have been like a 2-month flip, maybe, but we turned it into a 4-month flip because I wanted to make sure that everything was perfect. And then all of the different things start coming up, and you have, we ended up having an illegal structure, which we didn't know. We didn't know it was illegal because it was on the plans and everything. And so, with the city, but we had an inspector come out because we were changing some electrical, and he said, this whole thing is illegal, right? We're like, okay. So then we had to go down and we had to get permits. So that was the, part of the extension, a part of the cost. Turns out one of the walls needed to be redone. So we had to completely redo one of the exterior walls on the back of the house where that illegal structure is. I mean, it was very extensive. And so that's why we ended up only making about $10,000. Thankfully, we made 10 versus losing any money. But it was definitely a great learning lesson for me on the time cost involved, but also done is better than perfect, right? So I could have went out and purchased flooring for $1.50 a square foot, but if I buy it for $2 a square foot, it'll get done today versus 3 weeks from now. And so we always need to keep in mind that time cost, because time cost is where a majority of people don't necessarily think about it. They're so concerned with the materials and the labor and those things, but getting it done now is much better than getting it done later. So.
Yeah, I mean, I can totally relate. I think on the projects we did as well, the flip project, that is, like, you constantly, your brain is like telling you to save money by trying to cut cost, but
Yes.
not thinking about, one project I was paying like $3,000 a month just
Yep.
for, on my loan. So you don't think about that. You're just thinking, I need to but really you just need to get it done now. So yeah, that is such
Exactly.
it's such a great point. So you did a few flips, you did okay. Like you said, you did pretty, I mean, you were done, right? So,
Yeah.
like you said, and then you started looking at different other models, and you chose this PE private equity model. Can you tell us a little bit more about that in terms of like what kind of assets are you guys looking at? Are you sticking with single family, or are you going multifamily? And how's that been for you guys, just having this, private equity model?
I honestly, I can say that the private equity model is probably the best thing that I've ever done. Obviously, I'm in my mid-30s, so I've got a lot of life left to go. So I'm sure that there will be something better along the way. But what I love about what we do is we create a win-win-win scenario for everybody involved. So we create a win for our investors because we provide them. So let me back up a little bit. So my experience from flipping, we actually are able to go out and we can do acquisitions the way that we do as flippers. But instead of doing what's considered renovation, I do what we've coined as rentovation. So we turn it into a rental. So we renovate it to become a rental. I'm not putting in granite countertops. I'm not putting in the 4-inch baseboards. I'm not, repainting every single room in the house. We're not doing granite in all of the bathrooms. Those aren't the things that we're looking to do on a rental, right? Because most of the time, if you ever owned a rental property in the past, you know that the home is going to get destroyed. It doesn't matter if they're there for 3 months or 3 years, it will be just as destroyed in either time frame. So we started looking at the different components of why are people renting? And, we wanted to find a better way. And I found a lot of education about what's called a lease to own. So now what we do is we actually provide lease to own options for our residents. So our investor wins because we can go out and we can buy a property like a flipper, right? So as though we're going to flip it, but we do rentovation, which will fix what we call the core 4, which is the AC, the electrical, the plumbing, and the roof, right? So those are the 4 most expensive components of a home. So we go in and we make sure that the core is good on the home, that the bones, the structure is good. And we allow our residents to come in and do any of the cosmetic repairs that or anything that they want to do that's cosmetic, painting the walls. You don't like the color? Well, we originally painted it last year. And if you don't like the color, you are more than welcome to come in and paint the home. If you don't like the carpet, you have the option of putting in tile, you can put in wood flooring, but this is going to be your decision because you're eventually going to be a homeowner. And you're building, number one, your sweat equity, but you're also making it psychologically, we're making it theirs. And so we want to have this to be a win for them. There are a lot of individuals that back in the last recession, they lost everything because they were forced into, or they, not necessarily forced, but they were put into these subprime mortgages. And they didn't understand what the adjustable rate actually meant. They assumed that their payment would continue to be regulated or elevate or
Constant.
Thank you. That's what I was looking for. And so, at a certain point, all of a sudden they can't afford their home, and it's not necessarily something that they did wrong. So now they're finally starting to get out of under that foreclosure on their record. And so what we're looking to do is help them to become homeowners again. Their credit still sucks. They may or may not have a down payment, but what we want to do is we want to help them to become homeowners again and give them the American dream, which is homeownership. And so we help so the win-win-win is we help our investors because we're providing them a great rate of return, because we know how to buy, we know how to renovate. Because remember, I already did it all wrong last time. So I used all of that knowledge that I gained from all the times that I didn't do it correctly. And now I've been able to come in and we can renovate them correctly. And then we put our residents in that have a psychological profile of being homeowners. So are they going to take care of the property better or worse than a traditional resident? So now we have individuals that care about the home. They're going to make improvements on the home. They're not going to destroy it. And they're also going to stay and pay longer. So now we have less vacancy. We have less turnover. We have less turnover costs because we don't have to go in and redo all of the flooring, the painting, once a year. Because in Arizona, most individuals stay somewhere between 9 months and 18 months in a property and they move on. So what we're doing is we're creating a different psychological profile that we're looking for in our residents that actually want to become homeowners. So it becomes a win-win-win for everyone.
Wow, fascinating. Yeah, I really like that. I really like that so much. So now you're in this, private equity model, this win-win-win, renovations. I mean, these are like really, really interesting terms. I love that. I've never heard that one before. Renovation. I love it. So you've got these properties now. You've got your company kind of set up where you want it to be. What does 5 years look like for you guys? Because you got a really unique model. I mean, you talked about the 4 main elements of the house that you guys actually go for, and then you get the tenant to come in and have, and basically just have that autonomy to change the house. So I really like that, actually. Yeah. What does 5-10 years look like for you guys, for your company?
So what's really cool, and I want to back up a little bit. So we were just talking about the fear of doing your first deal, right? So the first time that you pull the trigger, you're like, okay, I'm going to do one and we'll see how this goes. And everybody says the same thing. I'm like, no, I'm going to do one and we'll see how this goes. Right? Okay. I'm sure you're nodding and you're laughing. Like this is exactly the same conversation you had in your own brain. So every single year, our vision grows. So as we grow as individuals, our vision grows. So when I bought my first rental property, I'm like, you know what? And I was thinking this was my first thought, was as I was signing paper, I'm like, man, this is so cool. This is the first rental that we're doing. This is amazing. We're going to do so well. Imagine what it would be like to have 10. And that was years ago. And now we're having the vision of, imagine what it's going to be like when it's no longer imagine what it would be like to have 10. It's imagine what it will be like. So I'm putting myself in that position. I'm actually getting goosebumps thinking about it, but putting ourselves in that position of imagine what it's going to be like when we have 500 properties in portfolio.
Wow. And I think I want to definitely touch on that, right? Because I'm huge. I'm like huge on mindset, right? And there's that debate, right? I think Jim Rohn always says this, Jim Rohn and Zig Ziglar, if you know those names, they always have this, he always talks about, they have this debate of, is it motivation first or education, right? And, it's a fascinating thought, because I really believe you need to have your mindset solid before you go get the knowledge, because anybody can get the knowledge, right? Because you could be knowledgeable and then now you have a motivated, knowledgeable person, right? And that's what you want, not a knowledgeable person who doesn't have any motivation to do anything. Correct. Right? So, and fear plays a big role as well. So what are your thoughts in terms of people who are still on the other side of, hey, I want to do this thing, I want to do real estate, but I don't know if I'm going to be successful, or I don't know what to do, or I just have like this mind block. What are your thoughts, just generally, just let me know.
So I've done a ton of education over the years. I have multiple mentors across the entire United States. They do education. And there have been many times where I've gone to their education, especially the first one I ever showed up to. I'm very social. So I'd go up and I'd talk to people, hey, how long have you been doing, real estate investing? And they're like, oh, I've been doing this for 10 years. Great. How many properties do you have? None. I'm sorry, what? Yeah, we've been doing education for 10 years. And we're just about there. I'm like, oh my gosh. So you're 100% right. You can get as much knowledge and education as you want, but it's about taking the first step. It's about having that mindset of, you know what, I need to stop worrying what other people think of me. It does not matter if they think that I'm going to win or lose, because you're always going to have naysayers in your life. And if you do, now is the time to identify those individuals and move them out of your life. Life is too short to have individuals that are not going to support you. And they may not support what you're actually doing, but they need to support you as an individual. And if you don't have that in your life, it's time to start to reevaluating. So I can't remember the book that I read this in, but you are the average of your 5 closest relationships. So look at your 5 closest relationships and determine, do you want to be the average of that? And if not, it's time to elevate your relationships. I'm not talking about, I'm not telling you to go out and get divorced. Don't think I'm saying that at all. But what I'm saying is you need to start elevating, and you need to start working with individuals that have the same vision, that have the same mindset, that want to go in the same direction. And if that means that you are getting education or real estate education from one place and you're like, man, these are not my people, find another place. There are so many different groups in any city. Every city I've ever been to, there's a group for real estate investing. You can find them on Meetup. You can find your local RIA. There's so many different places where you can find it. You will find the individuals that share your mindset and that will support you. And those are the individuals that are going to help you to be successful.
Wow. Yeah, that is so powerful. That is so powerful. So, I mean, and I think we can keep going and going and going, but we're definitely. Yeah. But we're definitely drilling into the quick round. These are going to be quick questions, quick answers. You ready?
Yeah, I'm ready.
All right.
Lightning rounds.
All right. Yeah. First question. What makes you an unique? What is that differentiating factor that separates you from the next guy or from the next girl?
I am 100% me. And I'm the least fake person that I know. If I like you, you'll know. If you don't, it's written all over my face if I'm not having a good day. So anytime that anybody works or, is around me, they know that they're going to get purely me. And I'm the most personable person that I know.
I like that. Yeah.
I'm genuine.
Yeah, my wife is just like that, and I'm on the opposite spectrum on that. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah. As a second question, what was the last book that you read, and what was the one thing you picked out from that book?
It was Start With Why by Simon Sinek. And the one thing that I realized from that book is I am more like a Wozniak. I'm sorry, I'm more like a Steve Jobs than I am a Wozniak. I have such a vision for the things that I want to do, and I can put it all on paper. I have 2 8-foot whiteboards in my office, my personal office, and they're usually full of different ideas and strategies and different ways that we want to implement or improve or automate to reduce our costs for our investors. So there's always these little things that come into my brain, and I've got tons of them. And so all I need is people to implement. And that's why my partnership with my business partner is so fantastic, is because he's a doer. He's my Wozniak. And so the partnership that we have really allows for us to provide the best benefit to everybody involved, ourselves, our investors, our residents, everybody that we work with on, other investors, things like that.
Awesome. Last question. Like you
Yep.
said, you've got a bunch of stuff going. You're running your private equity firm. You've got these properties. You've got investors. You got your business essentially. What do you do for fun?
What do I do for fun? I actually just got back in May from a trip that we took. We took my mom to Italy. So she had never been. She did one 3-day vacation with my dad back in the 90s to go to London, and we wanted to go. So my younger sister and her husband were having their anniversary, and we took my mom. So I'm like, I want to go. And my mom's like, I want to go. So we ended up taking her, and I've been multiple times. So it was just so much fun to watch, because we're all the same. And so it was just such an impact on her to go back to our country where, our origins are, and just to see all of the history that is there. And it was beautiful to watch her almost like her childlike eyes seeing it for the first time. And I'm like, I remember the first time that I saw all of this. And it was wonderful to be able to experience that with her, because there's nothing more important than family.
Nothing else. Yeah. Shout out to London though. That's where I'm from. I don't know if you know that, but yeah, shout out to London.
Oh, I
Yeah.
caught the accent. Don't worry.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. And thank you so much. If there's somebody
Yeah.
listening thinking, I really want to learn more about, what you guys are doing, or maybe they're in the Arizona market or anywhere in the country and I want to get connected, get to know you more, what's the best place where we can reach out and find more about you guys?
Yeah, we actually invest all over the country as well. So not just primarily in Arizona. Best way to get in touch with me would probably be my email, which is going to be Anne, ANNE, at Amagrande, which is AMAGRANDE.com. Or you can call me direct on my office line, which is going to be 480-542-7774.
I really like guests that give out a telephone number. You were
Yeah.
brave.
Oh,
You were
absolutely.
brave.
It comes, and honestly, when my office staff is not in the office, it comes directly to my cell phone.
Oh,
So
wow.
please don't put it down. But text messaging always works. But I prefer
And
email, then we can schedule something.
and it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for giving us your time, most precious resource.
Absolutely.
I really appreciate you.
Absolutely. You have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for having me on.